We've recently been introduced to a new character by the name of Gunko in One Piece. What English reading fans however missed is that the name of this character is written very differently in Japanese compared to almost every other One Piece character. Just to double check this, I went through the trouble of looking at the original Japanese names of literally every single One Piece character, and this confirmed that Gunko is indeed a huge exception. This could actually hint that Gunko, despite her appearance, is not actually a regular human, and she could in fact be a clone. The thing that makes Gunko's name different is that it was actually written in kanji, and this is something that almost never happens in One Piece. In Japanese, there are 3 separate systems of written characters: kanji, hiragana, and katakana. In the One Piece manga, the characters' names are almost always written in katakana and almost never in kanji. This is very different from real life, where most Japanese people's names are written in kanji. And this difference is because One Piece is a manga set in a fictional world, where most of the characters and their names are not based on Japanese. You can however find some characters in One Piece whose names are still written in kanji. Mainly, these are characters from the land of Wano, and this is likely because Wano itself is supposed to be the One Piece world's very own version of Japan. This naming convention also extends to other heavily Japanese-inspired characters outside Wano, such as Sentomaru. This is however something almost exclusive to these Japan-themed characters, and in all of One Piece, you will be hard-pressed to find any other characters whose names are written in kanji. But there are some. Very recently in the Egghead arc, we discovered that Vegapunk had actually cloned himself many times over, and these clones are actually some of the very few characters in the whole story whose names are also written in kanji. This made me wonder, could the Vegapunks and Gunko actually have something more in common? The Vegapunk's kanji names are all very simple, where Lilith being the evil Vegapunk has her name written with the kanji that means evil, Atlas being the violent Vegapunk has her name written with the kanji of violence, and so on. Interestingly, Gunko's name is also incredibly simple, with her name being written with the kanji of army and child. So, the theory here is this. Gunko's unique name could not just be a trivial detail, but a hint that she herself is a clone or an artificial human, created by the world government. The world government has now had access to Vegapunk's technology for decades, and we know that they have scientists of their own such as Saint Saturn. Interestingly, now that Saturn is dead, the one who took over his role as the warrior god of science and defense was none other than Saint Vigarland Garling, the commander of the God's Knights, and thus Gunko's boss. If Garling was considered a fit successor to Saturn, it could be that Garling himself possessed a lot of scientific know-how, and it could be that Gunko is a direct example of this. If Vegapunk's clones were created as avatars of his traits like being good or wise, it could be that the world government has their own spin on this, where Gunko being named an army kid means that she is simply a clone who was made for war. This somewhat matches her design, where she looks very young, but is still wearing what looks like a uniform. What is even more interesting is Gunko's power, where she has an ability to manipulate a stretchy object that is shaped like an arrow. It is actually possible that she has not eaten a devil fruit, but that this is actually a cybernetic enhancement. The reason for this is that we've seen an ability like this before, where during the reverie, Imu and or the elders use similar arrows to attack Cobra and Sabo. Devil fruit abilities are supposed to be unique to their user, but these abilities can still be copied and given to others through technology. Just like how the pacifists are able to use Kizaru's lasers, it could for example be the case that Gunko is just like the pacifista and is an artificial soldier using a cybernetic ability modeled on Imu's devil fruit. Still, is the evidence that her name is written in kanji enough to actually indicate all of this? For one, even if Gunko's ability is the same one we saw at the reverie, this still does not mean that she isn't a human. As for example, Kuma was also able to use Kizaru's lasers just like the pacifista. Despite his enhancements, Frankie was also still born a normal human. Furthermore, even though Gunko and the Vegapunks are some of the very few whose names are written in kanji, there is also an alternate explanation for Gunko's name. That doesn't mean that she's a clone. This is that Gunko could actually not be her real name. but instead a code name. While the idea of Gunko being a clone or an artificial being could be interesting, I actually think this is a more likely explanation for why her name was written in kanji. In One Piece, codenames have actually been one of these exceptions where they can be written in kanji, and we know that the world government uses them like this, where for example, Sakazuki's codename of Akainu uses the kanji of red and dog. This is also a theme repeated with all of the known admiral codenames, where all of them have at least one kanji in them. Unlike with the Vegapunks, Gunko and the admiral's names are read in the same way they are supposed to in Japanese, whereas the Vegapunks all have Western names that are simply labeled with kanji. If we also look at Aokichi's introductory scene, his codename is presented in the exact same way as Gunko's, where it is in his info card without any quotation marks. It would actually make a lot of sense for the God's Knights to use codenames like this. They are clearly a very secretive organization, and it would make sense for them not to use their real names while on missions, particularly in foreign lands like Elbaf. Furthermore, this could also connect to the God's Knights' role as the ones who handle the disputes between the celestial dragons. If they are essentially the police of the Holy Land, it would make sense that they hide their identities. Since the God's Knights are celestial dragons themselves, they very likely do not want to reveal which celestial dragon family they belong to, if they are punishing other celestial dragons. It's the same logic as to why Batman wears a mask, where he does not want criminals to know who he is, not to protect himself, but to protect the people closest to him. It is also one of the reasons why, for example, executioners in real life hid their faces under cowls, and people actually didn't know who they were, unless of course we pull off the cowl and find out that it was the like button of this video. Isn't this unexpected? Maybe give it a click now that it's out in the open. To quickly summarize this video, Gunko is one of the very few characters in One Piece whose name is written in kanji. The only other real examples of these kinds of characters in the story are Japanese-themed characters, or the Vegapunks, perhaps suggesting that just like the latter, Gunko is a clone or another kind of artificial human. However, another explanation is that Gunko is not her actual name, but a code name, as we know that the world government also uses kanji in their code names. And genuinely, it could still be that all of this is false, and the story simply decided to write her name like this for no special reason. If you like this video, you might also want to click here to watch a video about another recent Japanese reveal in the manga that most fans missed, where Luffy has finally revealed to have gotten the exact same pirate title as characters like Roger and Shanks. Thanks a lot for watching this video to the end.